ललिढलोक त्रणाय कारुण्य घना घना त्वाम् संसारदावानललिढलोक त्रणाय कारुण्य घना घना त्वां संसार प्राप्तस्य कल्याणागुणरानवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् महाप्रभो कीर्तन नृत्य गीत वादित्र माध्यान मनसोरसेना रोमाञ्चकम्पाशुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाम्ना शृङ्गारतान्मान्दिरमजनादो युक्तस्य भक्तां स्तनयुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसाद स्वादान तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना ओ प्रातिक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् अप्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो नो रतिकेलिसेध्ये ययालिभिर्योक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा वा यतैव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायं स्तुवंस्तस्य यस्य स्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् ध्यायं स्तुवंस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् ओ संसारदावानललिढलोका त्रणाय कारुण्य घनाघना त्वाम् ओ प्राप्त सकल्यान गुणरनवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Jaya Radha Damodar, Radha Damodar Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nilamada, Radha Nilamada Shri Radhe.
Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai.
Jaya Gauranita, Gauranita, Jaya.
O Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya.
O Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Manande. Damodara Stakam. No. Mataji. Have you seen Damodara Stakam? I'm asking you to sing.
Namami Sharam Sachit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vrajamanam
Namami Saram Sati Anandarupam Rasakundalam Gokule Vrajamanam.
Namami Sharam Sachit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vrajamanam
Namami
Gopya
Yashoda Vyalokaladavanam Paramristamatanta Tudruta Gopya
Sudanta Muhurnitra Yugmam Rijantam Karamboja Yugmena Satakanetram
Rudanta Murnekam Jugmame Jantam Parambuja Jugmena Satakanetram
Moho Shwasakam Patirekanka Kanta Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhatibadam
Mosa Sakampatire Kanta Kanta Sitam Kivam Damodara Bhakti Vadam
Iti Drekjvalila Birananda Kunde Swago
अष्टोत्तर सरशिष्यमाद इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विभिति सांस्थपकाचार्य वैष्णव श्रमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दत्त His divine grace अभय चरविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद जी की जय श्री गौरी गुरु वर्गापति उद्धार की जय श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास गुण सदगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिनंदन सुमन गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरण अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहदांग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय शिशु राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपना राधा कुंसम कुंगिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजभूम वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय तेलोशिव शिशु राधा नीलमाधव की जय शिशु माया पूर्णवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय परम करुण शिशु गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु श्रीमती सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन करुण सिंहदेव भगवान की जय जगंगा माई जमुना माई की तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय बोलो श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय श्री श्री राधा दामोदर की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे all glories dear somebody body all glories dear somebody body all glories dear somebody body all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाया प्रहलाद लाद दायिने हिरण्याकाशी पूर्वक्षः शिलकङ्कानखालाय इतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो बहिर्नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नकाम् अद्भुत शृंगा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे बाबा करा कमला बरे नकागुत सिंहा ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
वृषभधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय केशवदीता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश
जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा श्री श्री विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंह देव भगवान की भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारिवे सतवताय नमः नमः वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारिवे सतवताय नमः नमः वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य कृष्णा भक्ति प्रारिवे सतवताय नमः नमः जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदादेवी की Aminaya
Neheri bo sada yogala ruparashi ei nivedana dharo sakhirano gata karo nivedana dharo sakhirano gata karo seva adhikara diye koro nij dasi seva adhikara diye koro
Dina Krishna dase koi
namora hoy
Dina Krishna
dase koye namora hoy Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Yani kani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade
Kani kani sapapane brahma
tani kani cha
Kani kani
pranashanti pradakshina pade pade yani kani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade
Kani kani
Nicha papani brahmatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade yani kani cha papani brahmatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade pade yani kani cha papani brahmatyadikani cha tani tani pranashanti pradakshina pade Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyaye Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure grove, Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the Kavya dances of Raj. Please give me the privilege of personal service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Mahajanam Bhava Mahadavani Nivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya
Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipradam Purnam Vitasvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Saktis Tadrapitani Amitaks Smaranina Kala Etadrisita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Drishi Samihajani Nanuraga Jina Apisunistrena Pisrisuna Manina Manadena Kirtaniyastara Hari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhakti Rahaituki Twayi Ainandatanujakantaram Patitam Mam Matsme Bhavam Buddha Raya Avapada Pankaja Stita Dulisat Visam Vichintaya Nayanam Galadasrudaraya Vadanam Gadgyatudaya Jira Ulake Nishitam Vapu Kada Tavanamagrahare Bhavishyati Jugayitam Nimesena Chaksusa Prabhusayitam Junyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Aslishyava Padaratam Vinastumam Adarsanam Marmahato Karotuva Yata Tata Va Vidatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napuraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Siksastakam Ki Jai. Glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense for false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want a number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name, when will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering the moment more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhuti Vishmata Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names of the Lord that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna's imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person in the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're continuing to read about the Rasa dance because today is also Sharad Purnima and the beginning of the Rasa dance. So it says, when the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kunkuma. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kunkuma. This long-expected moonrise of the Sarat season was thus smearing the eastern sky. The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers, The atmosphere was cooling and festive. When Lord Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. Their attraction to the vibration of the flute increased 1,000 times due to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty, and when they heard the vibration of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So, there's lust in the material world and there's lust in the spiritual world, but they're two different things like gold and iron. In the material world, lust is explained as one's desire for sense gratification. In the spiritual world, lust is explained as the desire to please Krishna, not to please oneself. So there's a world of difference between lust in the spiritual world and lust in the material world. Immediately upon hearing the vibration of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed toward the place known as Vamsivata. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil, but she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go to see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families. But they left all such engagements and immediately rushed toward the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but caring neither to serve their husbands nor eating, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna. But unfortunately, they could not finish their cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies and the upper part on the lower part. While all the gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places, their husbands, brothers, and fathers were all struck with wonder to know where they were going. Being young girls, they were protected either by husbands, elder brothers, or fathers. All their guardians forbade them to go to Krishna, but they disregarded them. When a person becomes attracted by Krishna and is in full Krishna consciousness, he does not care for any worldly duties, even though very urgent. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it gives everyone relief from all material activities. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another, "My dear friend, if you desire to enjoy the company of material society, friendship, and love, then please do not go to see that smiling boy Govinda, who is standing on the bank of the Yamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight." Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs that one who has been captivated by the beautiful smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. So that's the 6th chapter, 47th verse. Actually, a yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis who could not personally go to Krishna began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned stage of the living entities, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as his result, and he who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. So this is something that we should carefully note. Both are conditions. The one who is pious but is enjoying material happiness, and the one who is impious and enjoying material misery, both are conditioned. It's not that the pious person is not conditioned. So, how do we understand this? We can understand about the impious person, but what about the pious person? Well, there is a verse that explains this in the Bhagavad Gita in more detail, and that's in the 6th chapter. Let's see where it is. 6th chapter, verse number 40. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Parthanai Vehana Mutra Vinasas Tasya Vidyate Nahika Yanakrit Kaschit Durgatim Tatagachati. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Prita, Arjuna, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never by. So the last 2 lines of that verse, which has 6 lines, is what we put in our goodness cookies as wisdom. One who does good is, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Now Prabhupada is going to give a very detailed explanation of why someone who's pious and enjoying material happiness is conditioned. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17, Sri Narada Muni instructs Vyasadeva as follows. Tyakva swadharmam charanam bhujam harir, bhajan apakvo tapatet tato yadi, yatra kva vabhadram abud amusya kim, kovarta abdo bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties and yet not gain anything. So this is a very, very important verse. And it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. For material prospects, there are many activities, both scriptural and customary. A transcendentalist is supposed to give up all material activities for the sake of spiritual advancement in life. Krishna consciousness, one may, in other words, for the sake of spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness. One may argue that by Krishna consciousness, one may attain the highest perfection if it is completed, but if one does not attain such a perfectional stage, then he loses both materially and spiritually. This is not true, but anyway, now it's going to explain. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one has to suffer the reaction for not executing prescribed duties. Therefore, one who fails to discharge transcendental activities properly becomes subjected to these reactions. The Bhagavatam assures the unsuccessful transcendentalist that there need be no worries, even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties. He is still not a loser, because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one so engaged will continue to be so even if he is low-born in the next life. On the other hand, one who simply follows strictly the prescribed duties need not necessarily attain auspicious results if he is lacking in Krishna consciousness. Okay. So, someone can say, well, I'm a Hindu and I fast every Monday for Hanumanji. And then I go on parikram to holy places like Vaishno Devi. And I climb, I go through the small passageways to see my Vaishno Devi. And I do this and I do that. Now, they're following principles, right? Like, for example, if someone dies in a family, they don't chant any mantras. They don't go to the temple, right? And then also, they will stay up all night for Shivaratri and even Diwali. And but to stay awake, they might gamble or talk, do nonsense, right? So they can say, we're following all our duties, right? But they're not really Krishna conscious. Now, what is the difference between following all the duties of Hinduism and not being Krishna conscious? Well, another thing that they do, they go to Navaratri programs, they go to Shivaratri program, they go to lectures by Asat Guru. They maybe follow someone like the so-called Nityananda, or the murderer guru. What's his name? Asaram Babu, right? So there was one person. His father was a follower of Asaram Babu. So, but he was chanting, he had his bead bag, right? I don't know what mantra he was chanting, right? But he was chanting some mantra. And, he accepted Asaram Babu as his guru. So we see there are a lot of people that are following some principles, or you call them occupational, they're doing their occupational duties according to that type of Hinduism. But they're not necessarily Krishna conscious. So what does it mean to be Krishna conscious? Well, you also follow regulative principles. You also have occupational duties, right? But they might be a little bit different. Like, we might not celebrate Navaratri in the same way that the other Hindus do. By the way, we're going to celebrate Navaratri from now on. But in a different way, we're going to explain who Durga is exactly and correctly, right? And what is her position in what you call the pantheon of the Hindu, let's say, hierarchy. Look up the word pantheon, Pantheon, I think. So there is a major difference between being Krishna conscious and following all the things of modern Hinduism, all the duties of modern Hinduism. So therefore, it says here, even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties, he is still not a loser, because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one who is so engaged will continue to be so, even if he is low-born in the next life. On the other hand, one who simply follows strictly the prescribed duties need not necessarily attain auspicious results if he is lacking in Krishna consciousness. This is a huge point. Right? So now it's going to go even deeper, explaining it. The purport may be understood as follows. Humanity may be divided into two sections, namely the regulated and the non-regulated. So, did you look up pantheon? What's it mean? It's a Greek word.
Yeah, so first meaning is a group of particular respected, famous or important people. Second
What,
meaning,
people? Does it say people?
yeah, and second meaning is all the gods of a people or religion collectively.
Yeah, all the gods. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I said the Hindu pantheon. Right. All the gods. so yeah, Durga is one of the gods, or we call them demigods, right? She's not the supreme personality of Godhead as Ramakrishna is claiming, and which you might garner by reading the Devi, the Devi Purana. Is it a Devi Purana or Devi Upanishad? It's Devi Purana. Yeah. So, I don't know if, I mean, I've never read the Devi Purana, but I know all the worshippers of Durga do read it. And it is a Purana. But see, there's three types of Puranas. There's the Puranas in the mode of goodness, there's the Puranas in the mode of passion, and there's the Puranas in the mode of ignorance. So the Devi Purana is in the mode of ignorance. Did you know that? There's three types of Puranas? No? Okay. See, that's why you come to class, to learn these things. So, we only read...
It's called Devi Bhagavad Purana.
Devi Bhagavad Purana, okay. We only read the ones that are in the mode of goodness. I mean, you can read the other ones also if you want to, but it's very easy to be misled because the Devi Bhagavad Purana will present her as Bhagavan, right? Or it seems like that. I don't know. I mean, I never read it, so I can't say for sure. But that's what people figure out when they read it, right? Okay, so now the purport may be understood as follows. Humanity may be divided into two sections, namely the regulated and the non-regulated. Those who are engaged simply in bestial sense gratifications without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section. Well, there's a big population of these non-regulated people today, right? And those who follow the principles of prescribed duties in the scriptures are classified amongst the regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and non-educated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. Yeah, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Their activities are never auspicious because while enjoying the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, they perpetually remain in material existence, which is always miserable. On the other hand, those who are regulated by scriptural injunctions and who thus rise gradually to Krishna consciousness certainly progress in life. Okay? So, Prabhupada is giving a very detailed information here. First of all, he says there's two types of people, the regulated and the non-regulated. All right? And notice he says, and those who are regulated, they rise gradually to Krishna consciousness, and they certainly progress in life. Now comes the real, let's say, differentiation. Those who are following the path of auspiciousness can be divided into three sections. Namely, 1, followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity. 2, those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence. And 3, those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Whoa. So Now it's becoming uh, more detailed, right? Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes: those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the higher planets, but still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not following the truly auspicious path. So that's who is mentioned here in the Krishna book. It says, in the conditioned state of living entities, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as his result. And he who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. Now, we have a finer differentiation here in this purport by Prabhupada. He's saying, those who are following the path of auspiciousness, meaning they're regulated, can be divided in three sections, namely the followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity. 2, those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence. And 3, those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Then it says, those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes: those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. So that second differentiation there, those who desire no fruit for sense gratification, they're called niskamas. They have no desire for sense gratification. So let's say you are married and you're following Krishna consciousness and you're having material success. Okay. And in other words, you're enjoying material prosperity. You know, nice houses, nice cars, nice family, nice bank balance, and so forth. If you use that in Krishna consciousness, you're on the progressive path. If you and what does that mean? Use it for Krishna consciousness. Even though you have material prosperity, you are practicing a minimalist lifestyle. Right? You're not overly luxurious, even though you have the money. You could buy bigger houses, you could buy bigger cars, you could buy boats, you could buy so many things. But you're living mostly a minimalist lifestyle. Right? So what happens there? So that means you have all this money, but you're not actually using it for sense gratification. You use it for spreading Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, when I was, at one time, I personally was making a lot of money in France. I gave most of it away. Not all of it, but most of it, right? So I always tried to keep, let's say, a limit to the way I would spend the money, although I had a lot of money at that time, right? So, but then little by little, by always, donating to the temples and things like that, I gave away a lot of money. And basically that's how I became a member of the GBC, because I gave away so much money for printing books in different languages and helping out different BBTs around the world. Eventually, they recognized that, and they thought I was a very good manager because I knew how to manage money. Okay, so that type of example. Now there are devotees like that they're making a lot of money, but they're using a lot of it for spreading Krishna consciousness, and it's sort of limiting the luxuriousness of lifestyle. So basically, it's saying here there are people who have material prosperity. Okay. Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes: those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the higher planets, but still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not following the truly auspicious path. There it is. So that's who he's referring to here. He says, in either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. So here that differentiation is explained in much more depth by Srila Prabhupada. And then he says, the only auspicious activities are those which lead one to liberation. Any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material bodily concept of life is not at all auspicious. Activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity, and anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. And anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. And because the Eightfold Yoga system is directed toward the ultimate realization of Krishna consciousness, such practice is also auspicious, and no one who is trying his best in this matter need fear degradation. Okay. So, someone who is, let's say, they're following the Patanjali yoga system, right? But they're following it correctly. Most people don't follow it correctly. Therefore, they don't really get what they're looking for. But if someone's following it correctly, therefore it's mentioned, of the three people following the path of auspiciousness, there are three categories. The followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity, okay, we just discussed now. Then those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence, so that would be the Patanjali followers. Now, most of them, when they, after going through a long life of, maybe many lifetimes, of what you would call pretty severe renunciation, when they actually see Paramatma in real time and really, they say, Tat Vamasi, that's me. And they merge into the body of the Lord. They eventually fall down because that's not the meaning of Tatvamasi. Tatvamasi doesn't mean that I am that. Tatvamasi means I am his. So that means I'm a devotee. Whereas if they misinterpret it as I am that, they identify themselves as the Supreme Personality Godhead, they fall down eventually, even though they might merge. And there's two types of merging. You merge either in the Brahmajyoti or you merge into the body of the Lord. So any type of misconception will cause the fall down. All right, so you see how important it is to read Bhagavad Gita, right? We're reading now a summary of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but to understand it in more depth, you have to read Bhagavad Gita also, or Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the extension of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so Then it says, the gopis associates of the gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. Most of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna, as stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavitabi. In the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. They are expansions of Srimati Radharani. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to that status from this material world. So in other words, when Krishna has his pastime in the material world, he brings gopis from the spiritual world with him, and he accepts highly qualified ladies who he's going to take back to Godhead with him, who have qualified themselves through Krishna consciousness and come eventually to the Madhurya Rasa as their chosen relationship with Krishna. Then they get a chance to join with the other gopis who are coming from the spiritual world and, of course, engage in the Rasa Lila dance with Krishna in Vrindavan, in Vamsivata. And then, after Krishna's pastime is over, they go back to Godhead. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, let's say you don't have the Madhurya Rasa. No, but you will still appear somewhere where Krishna is having a pastime in the material world, and you'll associate with him, just like Arjuna is associating with him in the relationship of Sakya Rasa. And then some people, like, let's say, Tukaram is associating with him in the mode of devotee of the Dasya Rasa, or someone else is relating to him as a mother or a father. So they also go back to Godhead after Krishna's pastime is over and after they've engaged in that pastime in their rasa with the Lord. Right? But in this specific instance, we're talking about the Rasa Lila dance. So therefore, some of the gopis are coming with Krishna from the spiritual world, and some have qualified themselves by cultivating that Madhurya Rasa to be trained by those gopis that are there from the spiritual world, and then engage in a Rasa Lila dance, and then go back to Godhead. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to that status from this material world. So some of the gopis who joined Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruit of action, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. You see what happens when you constantly meditate on Krishna? You can personally associate with the Lord, see the Lord, interact with the Lord, and then go back to Godhead. Now we see the value, why this is always being emphasized. We should try and concentrate always on Krishna. Right? They're severely, if they had been bound by fruit of action, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. So that's the way to be free from the reactions of all karma, to constantly meditate on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, and their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. So, ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence. So that is what Lord Chaitanya taught us. to feel the absence of the Lord. This is an emotion, right? The Mayavadis wanted to eliminate all emotions and meditate on either like the Buddha's zero or meditate on just the Brahman effulgence and not have any emotions. But the devotees are full of emotions, but not mundane emotions, transcendental emotions, because they feel separation from the Lord in the material world. See? So, therefore, Lord Chaitanya demonstrated this when he came. He demonstrated Vipralamba Bhava, this severe feeling of separation from the Lord, right? And that's expressed in the 8 prayers of the Goswamis in the last verse. I don't have it here. Anyway, I'll read it tomorrow. Where they express, Lord Chaitanya is saying, where are you, Krishna? Where are you? Are you on the hill of Govardhan? Are you hiding in the forest of Madhuvan? Where are you? You know, he's not saying, oh, I had coffee with Lord Krishna last night in my kitchen. You know, we had a nice discussion. Right? No, it's not like that. The devotee is feeling the separation from the Lord, right? And therefore he can't stop thinking about the Lord. So, now, I'll give you a mundane example that illustrates that. Let's say somebody has a girlfriend, but their let's say courting is at a distance. The girlfriend lives, let's say, in Boston, and he lives in California, somewhere in San Francisco, and they only see each other rarely because the girlfriend is pursuing her college degree, and the other one is working in a company in San Francisco. So usually, what happens is there's a yearning. Oh, I wish. I wonder what my fiance is doing, and the fiance is wondering what's my future husband doing, and oh, I missed him so much. We're so busy here. I don't get to see them. So there's a yearning, to want to have their company, but there's this distance that's separating them. So what happens, they talk on the phone, or they have on the internet or whatever. But usually, let's say this was in the 1880s, so it was not so easy to communicate, right? So they might just see each other maybe once a year or once every 4 years. So they'd be yearning all that time when they're separated, So that's a mundane example, but you see, you start from the mundane to understand transcendence, right? Because the mundane is a perverted reflection of what's happening in the spiritual world. But that gives you a hint of what's happening in the spiritual world. See? So, therefore it says here, their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions. And their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death either by pious or sinful activities. But the gopis, who began to meditate on Krishna, transcended both positions and became purified, and thus elevated to the status of the gopis, already expanded by his pleasure potency. So, but the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna, so these are the ladies who are devotees, and they have this penchant or this attraction for the Madhurya Rasa with Krishna, and therefore they're meditating on Krishna's transcendental, meditating on Krishna all the time. And so it says here, the conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death either by pious or sinful activities. But the gopis who began to meditate, notice, began to meditate on Krishna, transcended both positions because and became purified and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruitive reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature. Hari Bol. Maharaj Parikshit heard Sukadeva Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the rasa dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, so paramour is what would be considered illicit in the material world, but it's the highest thing in the spiritual world. So it's parakiya rasa. Okay, so in the material world, it's the most heinous thing, but in the spiritual world, it's the highest thing. So now we understand why so many people get confused when they hear, without going through the first 9 books of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then just jumping to the 10th book and reading. They interpret it as mundane sex, whereas there's nothing mundane or mundane sexual about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. But if they just jump to it without going through the first 9 cantos thoroughly, they interpret it in that way. And because of that, there's havoc. But Prabhupada gave us the 10th canto, or at least a large part of it, in the form of the Krishna book, so that we would not jump to the 10th canto, but we would learn about it in his Krishna book, as we're learning right now. But he has a lot of explanations, and it's supplemented by other explanations, or supplemental explanations in Bhagavad Gita and the earlier books of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So he says, when he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, he said, the gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? Whoa, this is a great question, right? In other words, he's saying, look, these are ladies from the material world. We're not talking about the gopis that came down from the spiritual sky with Krishna. But they are thinking about Krishna not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but as a paramour, meaning like a boyfriend, right? Who's married. And she may be married also, right? So then it says, how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? A paramour is a secret lover, basically, in English. It's, a married woman has a secret lover, and it's keeping a secret from her husband. One should consider here that Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme Para-Brahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material, contaminated stage simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone? Whoa. Now, 2 really important questions here. Hard questions. If one is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then, since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? Whoa, see, he's going deeper and deeper into this hard question, right? This is a very intelligent question. Because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of blind followers of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. Whoa, there it goes, right? All the worshippers of Devi, all the worshippers of Shiva, all the worshippers of Varuna and Vivaswan and this thing and that thing, right? It's not the same thing as meditating on Krishna. Actually, even thinking of demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayana, or Krishna on the same level of demigods is called a pasandi, or rascal. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Sukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered even before this incident." Wow. Because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. "Why are you again asking about the same subject matter which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful? A spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way." Sukadeva Goswami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami then reminded Parikshit Maharaj about the salvation of Sisupala. Sisupala was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sisupala gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love? There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends, like the gopis, can achieve such freedom and much more. Besides that, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is called Hrishikesha. Sukadeva Goswami, Hrishikesha means the master of the senses. Sukadeva Goswami also said that Krishna is Hrishikesha, the super soul, whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by the material body. Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Hrishikesha. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Hrishikesha and Ahoksaja. Those two particular words have been used by Sukadeva Goswami in this instance. Hrishikesha is the super soul and Ahoksaja is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to the material nature, just to show favor to the ordinary living entities. Out of his causeless mercy, he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell. Sukadeva Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, and without any material qualities. His causeless mercy, he appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy. And whenever he appears as he is without change. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord says that he appears by his spiritual potency. He does not appear under the control of the material potency. The material potency is under his control. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under his superintendence. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency, known as Durga, is acting just like a shadow of the substance. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him, either because of his qualities of beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, through affection or friendship, or even through lust, anger, or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination is assured. So Sisapala, who was envious of Krishna, always had Krishna in his mind, but in a negative way. But even in a negative way, he was purified by the Lord. See? But it's not recommended because you're missing all the nectar by being limited by the enviousness. Right? And there's a great chance that he's going to fall down because it's an impersonal type of merging. Okay, so what time is it now?
7:16.
7:16.
Okay, so we'll stop right there. We're going to continue this for another couple days because this is the time of year when we should hear this. Right? Haribol. Are there any questions? You want to have some hard questions? We heard some hard questions today to answer. And we can go over it a little bit more to understand the answer.
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj, so we just read about that mundane feelings and then spiritual feelings or whatever, because we are in a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Mundane.
The more you become Krishna conscious in the material world, the more you yearn for the association of Krishna. The more you feel separation from Krishna. Right? So, when you love someone and you're separated, you're always thinking about them and you're always wanting to be with them. Right? So that's called vipralamba bhava. And you actually begin to experience the separation from Krishna, and it in a sense, it hurts to be separated like that. Right? And so you're always yearning to be in association with the Lord. So therefore, you'll come for darshan on a regular basis. You'll come to hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis. You are thriving. It's what's keeping you alive. Otherwise, you'll commit suicide in feeling separation. Right? So that assuages, that soothes, that hurt. But in another sense, it increases it because you're learning more and more about Krishna. See? So, yeah, go ahead.
So the feelings actually, if you see so my question is how we differentiate the pure feelings with mundane feelings, because if those feelings is a perverted reflection, that means how come it becomes like inferior quality?
No, the way you differentiate is that as you gradually stop coming to class, that means that you're feeling mundanely. You're not feeling transcendentally. Because if you're feeling transcendentally, you don't want to miss anything. You want to get that vaccination every day of hearing, right? But if you're affected by the mundaneness of the material world, little by little, you stop coming to class. You might not be chanting nicely. Maybe sometimes you eat something that's not offered to the Lord. So you become more and more. You're on the slippery slope, going down. So that's the difference. Whereas if you're going up, you're thriving on hearing and chanting and going on Sankirtan, and you're thriving on it. That's what keeps you alive. You can't get enough of it. Right? On the other way, you take it easy. Right? And you're on a slippery slope going down. That's how you tell the difference. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in 640, you have explained three types.
Of people who are following the path of auspiciousness.
Yes. So in the first type, you have explained the divided into further two types. One is like who is a fruitative workers. Another is those who desire no fruit for sense gratification.
Right.
So my question is, the no fruit for sense gratification, is this category higher than the second category that we discuss, is those who are trying to find ultimate liberation? So ultimate liberation from material existence, because the subcategories.
The niskama is higher, yeah, because they have no material desire. They don't even want liberation. Okay. They are prosperous, right? They're enjoying the prosperity by using it in Krishna consciousness, and they don't even want liberation. They're niskama. They don't have any material desire. Whereas a person who wants liberation, it's a type of material desire. Okay, so therefore, nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavitam va jagadishikame, mama janmani janmanishware, bhavatad bhaktir haitaki twai. They don't even want liberation. They just want service.
Okay, Maharaj.
Okay?
Thank you.
So niskama. Niskama is a very good word. Let's see where it is. Niskama. Niskama. There's nice karma and niskama. Nice karma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Okay. But niskama means having no material desires, no desire for self-interest. So the ones who are enjoying material prosperity, but they're niskama, they have no desire for for self-interest. So they're using a large part of it in service of the Lord, and sort of restricting, keeping minimalist type of lifestyle. Right? But yet they have a lot of money. But they're using most of it in the service of the Lord. Haribol. All right, so we'll have Guru Puja. See how powerful this Krishna book is. Very, very powerful book. Who wants to sing? Sing.
Screen, Maharaj.
Yeah. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandamui savadana mate
Bandamui Savadana Mate
Jahara prasade bai e baba turiya jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Baba Toriya Jai
Krishna prapti hoi jaha hote
Krishna Prapti Oya Oite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitate Koriya Kya
Guru Chitete Koriya
Arana Koriho Mani Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Sri Guru Charani Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarvasha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जिनमें जिनमें प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिल जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
प्रेम भक्ति होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेदे गाय जहाँ चरितो
वेदे गाय जनक चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जैनारा बंधु
गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जैनारा बंधु
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
आह प्रभु कोरो दोया देह मोरे पादा छाया
प्रभु कोरा दोया देह मोरे पादा छाया
ये बेजास गुसुक त्रिभुवाना
विदेहास सुखी भुवाना
शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
नम ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्यनामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णवेष्टाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्यनामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषां शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा
हरे Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajikachasta Tarasatara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Minda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Madhura Dhama Ki Jai Navadvip Dhama Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Namo The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain to pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him